We won in 2024. We got another Haunted Chocolatier update. This game was announced over 3 years ago, and we haven't really got any substantial updates since late 2021, other than a few screenshots and comments about the development here and there. That all changed a few days ago when we got an official blog post on December 4th, 2024. I'll link that in the description with an update about the game development and of course some screenshots to get our minds buzzing about what this game is going to look like. Very sneaky, by the way, because Eric Barone did not even tweet about it or post it anywhere other than on the blog, so yeah, we just had to discover it for ourselves. Let's get right into the video and discovering everything new we learned, and if you're new here, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future Haunted Chocolatier news. First topic, we have addressing the pauses of Haunted Chocolatier. If you're a Stardew Valley player, this won't come as too much of a shock to you, but ConcernedApe is very committed to that game, and in the recent 1.6 update that came out March of 2024, it ended up being a much bigger than expected update with a lot of new content, but with that came some rollout complications, especially for mobile and consoles. However, now that 1.6 has more or less been completely rolled out, CA says that, well, it has been sad to see this game, being Haunted Chocolatier, collecting dust on the shelf. He is excited to get back into it, and that is the biggest confirmation that I was personally waiting for, is that the game will at some point release. And what I mean by that is when it first was announced, ConcernedApe mentioned if he doesn't like the game or doesn't think it's ever good enough, he simply won't release it. He did feel hopeful in 2021 that that would not be the case, but he confirms here in this blog post that he is very attached to the characters, themes, and ideas in this game. That makes it pretty certain we will see Haunted Chocolatier launch. So that is something I think we can rest easy about, and we know that we will see this game go from idea to reality. We also got an update on the state of development. So we learned in this blog post that the game does have a very firm direction, and he has even created a vertical slice of the game, which more or less means it has a skeleton or roadmap of the game, and now it just needs to be flushed out with all the content to make it complete, and in other words, fun. To avoid pressure on timelines, there will be no early access, no pre-orders, or Kickstarter type fundraising. He just wants to release it as a complete game that people will be satisfied with. That seems uncommon these days, so I actually welcome this when we get a full product that is complete on launch. I also want to mention that Stardew Valley was more or less a complete game on launch, and he added so much content to it afterwards, so I imagine Haunted Chocolatier could be the same, where we get updates with new content, areas, and characters if the game is received very well. We have to talk about release speculation because as a gamer, one of the most fun and frustrating things is speculating when our next favorite game is going to release. I want to be very clear, there's absolutely no indication from ConcernedApe one way or the other about when this game could come, but using my knowledge of previous Stardew updates, Haunted Chocolatier news we have gotten, and what he has said about the state of the game in this update, I have to say I would be surprised if we do see this game in 2025. The only way we see it in 2025, in my opinion, is at the very, very end of the year, like end of December. A lot of his Haunted Chocolatier updates have been in December, plus a lot of the major screenshots and the theme of the game seems to be wintry, so maybe it is hinting at a December release date, and could it be 2025? Maybe. I personally think it is more likely in the fall of 2026 or even December 2026. Yes, this physically pains me to say, but 2 years of hardcore development is what is likely required to launch this game in a complete state, up to the standard that I know he keeps himself to. And that is if a Stardew 1.7 update doesn't derail development again, but I actually don't suspect that will happen because I think so much content was added in 1.6. I think and hope that he feels satisfied enough with that to, really move on to this next game and then maybe revisit Stardew after this one launches and gives people time to sink their teeth into that one. Moving on to screenshots, and what exactly do they mean? So let's analyze these, because as I mentioned in every ConcernedApe video that I make, nothing he does is unintentional. There is always information that hints but not confirms things he's working on. And I personally love it, and clowning and analyzing things to death. And you know what? I could be wrong, but I think I have a pretty good feeling about what I've analyzed here. Let's start with the screenshot that probably gives us the most new information: the small cabin. Tons of things to mention here. One of the most obvious is that there are crops. So yes, I think this means there will be a farming component to the game. I don't think it'll be a huge component to the game, and I think based on what these rows of crops look like, I think it will be a very limited amount. I don't think there will be any mass farming, but it does make sense to include this mechanic because with a chocolate shop, there are likely a lot of plants and farming related products that go well with that gameplay loop. For example, chocolate is often paired with fruit such as strawberries, honey, coffee flavors, and more. So having the ability to grow these things on your own and use them to combine and craft new rare chocolate recipes just makes sense. So likely some of these crops will be used for chocolate ingredients and crafting, and then others for purely money making, because this looks like carrots, potatoes, and kale if I compare them to Stardew Valley crops. And so I don't think we're gonna have a kale flavored chocolate, but I could be wrong. The second clue this screenshot gives us is similar to Stardew Valley. The base farmhouse has visual aspects that change as you upgrade the farmhouse. As you can see here, there is a column and a row with piles of wood, which probably means there are 2 or more major updates to this home. One thing I really hoped for was the ability to customize your home and or living space in this game of Haunted Chocolatier, because that is such a fun aspect of Stardew. And this to me is confirmation we will get that in some way, shape, or form. In the original trailer, you wake up in the mansion that is attached to the chocolate shop. So either this cabin is unlocked later into the game, or you can sleep in the mansion or the cottage depending on what your day is going to look like. Or maybe that mansion is not in fact your home at all, and waking up in that mansion is actually maybe like a one-off in a cutscene or something. The last thing I want to point out in this screenshot is the river with the water wheel. This could just be for aesthetics, but I kind of wonder, will this actually be a mechanic to running this farm and cabin space? I don't know, it just seems very intentional to me. I'm going to quickly talk about the character portraits that we get in this blog update. There's honestly not a lot to say here, but I do hope this lady on the left is evil, dramatic, or somehow ruins my life, because that is a real diva right there. I think we actually saw her in the trailer getting a gift, so I'm assuming she is a romanceable NPC. Then on the right, my first thought is this is Kent's long lost brother or something, and ConcernedApe did previously say that there is a connection between Haunted Chocolatier and Stardew Valley to some degree, and they do exist in the same universe. So maybe this is the small nod to each other. Either way, I kind of hope this guy destroys my life too. Let's move on to the battle scene screenshot. So while this seems like a pretty simple screenshot, I do have some thoughts. One of those thoughts is that these are Stardew Valley slime superior cousins that can float and demolish your HP bar. They kind of look like the next stage of slime enemies. The other thought I have is that this is a hint to the complexity and difficulty of the battle system. I mentioned this in my last video, which I will link in the description, because this gives a lot of context about what we know about the game so far, so it is a helpful watch after this one. But there has been a lot of commentary from ConcernedApe on how he wanted to change and improve the battle system from Stardew Valley, and we already know there are some new mechanics that have already been revealed. For example, stunning enemies with your shield. So this screenshot with just so many enemies, I think leans towards a more complex and probably tough dungeon crawling system. So in Stardew Valley, you can bring like 999 pizzas with you. So even in tougher situations, healing is usually not a problem later into the game. It's just stressful to hit the right item to eat before dying, although this might just be my own skill issue. So I'm hoping there will be some mechanics implemented so that you can set your items to auto eat at least once or twice near death, so you can focus on warding off enemies. As long as there's something implemented to make that part easier, I'm all for a more complex and difficult battle system. There's still lots to be determined, but this is my initial thought based on this particular depiction of combat. The last new screenshot we got is a screen where you can equip equipment for your character. And as you can see, with the addition of belts, socks, and others, there are quite a few more types of equipment and clothing that you can equip. Also, let's celebrate because we get rings again. For some reason, I was really hoping to see rings and or accessories in Haunted Chocolatier, since there is more of a focus on combat, and I really liked the ring aspect, especially combining the rings in the forge. So this screenshot just confirms that he's basically going to build off of what we already know and love and take it to that next level. I'm willing to bet that most, if not all, item slots here can provide some additional stats, such as defense, luck, speed, strength, debuff protection, and probably some new mechanics that we don't even know about. So instead of relying on only boots, rings, and weapons to do all of those stat additions, and let's be honest, a lot of times boots and rings, there was no real rhyme or reason to what stats they provided. So I think the intent here is to spread out some of these stat boosts to other equipment. So maybe finding a rare belt will be extra helpful for bow and arrow users because they provide a stat that you will need for that playstyle. So maybe you will prioritize some sort of socks or belts or offhand weapons more than others depending on your combat playstyle. And that is something that ConcernedApe did say, is that he wanted to lean into having a bunch of different combat styles based on player preference. So I have a feeling it will feel like really exciting to find certain types of equipment in certain types of playthroughs. I think we can also reasonably predict that this equipment screen means that there will be a very exciting collecting and optimization mechanic for dungeon crawling and portrait jumping explorations. And there will be a lot of these things to collect in the game, so looking very forward to that. The last thing I want to talk about in this blog update, because of course he's going to drop something that is going to make our minds just absolutely buzz about the possibilities of the future, is it's very interesting that ConcernedApe mentions that he will be working on more games beyond Haunted Chocolatier and Stardew. I have a very, very sneaking suspicion this means he has already started on a third game, at least the idea or crafting what it might look like in his head. But he definitely won't reveal any more about this anytime soon, because also in this blog post, he does mention that while he had his reasons for releasing his next project, Haunted Chocolatier, early, and this is assumed because he vaguely mentioned years ago Chucklefish's Witchbrook that is also in development, that he wanted to be clear he was not part of that project. So he in turn announced Haunted Chocolatier to make that distinction very clear. So even though he did that very early, he does not like to announce things too soon because it does come with a lot of pressure. And it's a lot of pressure that he puts on himself. So what I foresee happening is that he will launch Haunted Chocolatier when it is ready, maybe do an update or two with some content, and maybe even another Stardew 1.7 update while he works on the bones of this game, and then does kind of a release period that's not so far off when the game is going to be done. But I do feel like we are going to get 3 games that are within the same universe and kind of share some similarities and gameplay loops, but will all have their own unique take on this farming / life sim genre, as we are already seeing with Haunted Chocolatier. your main purpose is to run a chocolate shop versus a farm. So maybe we'll get a third business style or way to revitalize a town that is completely different from the first two games. So what are your thoughts on this Haunted Chocolatier update? Does this get you more excited? When do you think it's going to release? And what idea do you think he has cooking up for his third game? Let me know in the comments. Also, it does seem like we will be getting a little bit more regular updates, aka not once every 3 years. So I do anticipate having more news for you in the first half of 2025. So stay tuned for that. Again, leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, and we'll see you at the next one.